Hello everyone, and welcome to the Hidden Secrets channel. Today I will tell you about an incident known as the Rampage of the Tank, which took place in San Diego, California, USA in 1995. On May 7, 1995, a shocking event shook the entire United States. An MN-16 military tank rampaged through the streets of San Diego. Everywhere it went, it caused serious destruction. Power poles, bus stops, and various public facilities were all damaged. Along the way, many cars were also crushed. The entire San Diego police force was deployed, but couldn't stop the tank's wild actions. They could only chase behind it, watching it wreak havoc everywhere. This unexpected incident stunned the whole nation. Millions of people watched it unfold live on television, worrying for those traveling on the roads. So, how did that tank end up on the streets? Who was driving it? And what was his motive? We invite you to follow along with today's story. California is a famous state in the US, known for its stunning natural beauty and cultural diversity. It's often referred to as the land of dreams. At that time, US President Bill Clinton was involved in a scandal regarding an affair with White House intern Monica Lewinsky, a story that shocked the nation in the 1990s. Not only that, in 1994, there was also the O.J. Simpson murder case. Simpson, a former football star, was accused of murdering his ex-wife and her friend. The subsequent police chase of O.J. Simpson was as dramatic as an action movie and became one of the most infamous cases in American history. The central figure in our story is Shawn Timothy Nelson, born on August 20, 1959 in California. His father was named Betty and his mother was Fred Nelson. Shawn was the second son in the family. In 1978, after graduating from high school, Shawn had no clear plans for his future, so he enlisted in the U.S. Army. Once he completed basic training at Fort Knox in Kentucky, he was assigned to a tank regiment in West Germany for his active duty enlistment. But during his time there, he faced numerous challenges and became deeply discouraged. By 1980, at just 21 years old, he decided to leave the military and return to his hometown of Claremont, San Diego, back home. Nelson took on odd jobs to make ends meet. During that time, he reconnected with his school friend Susie Hellman, who would become the love of his life. After years apart, they reunited as adults. Nelson was strong and well-built, while Susie was charming and beautiful. The two began dating romantically, and by 1984, were living together. Nelson worked as a plumber, and Susie was a secretary at a law firm. After a year of hard work and saving, they purchased a house on William Street. From their marriage in 1984, the couple enjoyed 6 years of peaceful, happy life, until the 1990s brought Nelson unmistakable pain. In 1988, his mother passed away, and in 1989, his father died from a terminal illness. Misfortune kept knocking. In 1990, Nelson suffered a serious car accident that left him with major neck and back injuries. While hospitalized at Sharp Memorial, he felt the doctors treated him unfairly. Dissatisfied with the outcome of his surgery, he requested to be discharged against medical advice. As he tried to leave, a security guard physically restrained him, resulting in a scuffle. The guard beat him for refusing to return to the hospital. Filled with anger, Nelson sued the hospital, accusing them of negligence, unlawful confinement, and assault. He demanded $16 million in compensation. But in 1993, the court rejected his lawsuit, concluding that the confrontation involved fault on both sides, and that Nelson had violated hospital policy by leaving without doctor's approval. Not accepting the verdict, Nelson aimed to escalate the case to a higher court. But before he could act, the hospital countersued, and the court ruled against him. He lost the case and was ordered to pay $600 in court costs and medical fees. Already struggling, cut off from work, dependent entirely on his wife's income, this financial burden devastated Nelson. From this point on, he sank deeper. He began excessive drinking and even turned to drugs, trying to suppress his misery. His health rapidly deteriorated and his marriage collapsed when Susie, unable to tolerate his destructive behavior, filed for divorce and left. With Susie gone, Nelson's life spiraled into ruin. Neighbors began noticing his strange behaviors by day. He continued plumbing work, but by night loud construction noises erupted from his backyard as he tirelessly dug. Disturbed neighbors complained repeatedly. Over 2 years, police received dozens of noise reports and issued at least 9 warnings. Yet Nelson perceived the enforcement as harassment and sued the local police and city council for $2 million. His suit was promptly dismissed. The court warned him of his actions. So, what was he doing in the backyard? Every night Nelson believed he had discovered a hidden treasure. Buried gold hidden beneath his home. He brought in heavy machinery to dig through the night. Gradually, the hole reached about 6 meters deep. He even converted a jacuzzi into a water tank, believing it could be used to extract gold. He frequently shared his grand plans with friends, but everyone urged him to snap out of it, warning he'd destroy himself. But Nelson was stubborn. He refused to heed advice. As the treasure hunt consumed him, his reliance on alcohol and opiates grew. On the night of June 15, 1994, while drunk, he fell asleep outside. That night his tools, used for plumbing and financing his treasure search, were stolen. Without tools or income, he fell behind on bills. His power and water were shut off. His ill-fated treasure scheme never yielded results. The bank foreclosed on his home. Nelson became homeless, wandering aimlessly. Filled with frustration and confusion about how life had turned so cruel, he screamed at the sky in fits of rage. But relief was fleeting. He nursed a growing resentment toward the hospital, the courts, and the police, whom he believed had ruined his life. Finally, he devised a horrifying plan, one that would shake America to its core. The night of May 17, 1995, Shawn Nelson made his move. Fueled by rage and desperation, he drove approximately 8 kilometers from where he was staying to a familiar place, a military base where he had once trained, the California National Guard Armory. Inside the base, surrounded by 2.5-meter-high barbed wire fences, was a depot housing a vast array of decommissioned or outdated military equipment, including several tanks. Normally, security was tight, but that night was different due to an extended shift for maintenance personnel. The armory's gates had been left open for convenience. Nelson seized the opportunity. He quietly slipped past the fence in his pickup truck, driving straight into the depot without encountering resistance. Workers inside were still busy with their tasks and didn't notice the intruder. Parking his truck, Nelson made his way to the row of old tanks. He climbed onto several of them, trying the hatches, though the tanks were locked. The padlocks were no match for his determination. One by one, he broke them open, until he found what he was looking for: MM60 Patton tank, relatively intact and surprisingly operational. The M60, a beast of war developed in the 1960s and heavily used during the Cold War and even the Gulf War in 1991, weighed around 57 tons and could reach speeds up to 40 km/h. Though officially retired from active U.S. duty, many of these tanks remained in storage or were still in use by Allied nations. Nelson climbed inside, fired up the engine, and to his amazement, it roared to life. With a face full of rage and twisted satisfaction, he drove the 57-ton juggernaut straight through the iron fencing of the armory. Nothing could stop him now. The guards watched in stunned disbelief as the massive tank smashed through barriers and rolled into the city streets of San Diego. The chaos had begun. As the M60 thundered through the streets, Nelson plowed through everything in his path: light poles, fire hydrants, traffic signals, bus stops, and dozens of parked vehicles. His first target, many believed, was the Sharp Memorial Hospital, the very place he had sued years before. At first, bystanders were confused. Some thought it was a military exercise. Many pulled out their early cell phones and camcorders, capturing what seemed like a surreal spectacle. But when the tank began leveling public property, panic erupted. Police were dispatched immediately. Sirens wailed. Helicopters followed the path of destruction from above, barking commands through loudspeakers, but Nelson paid no attention. He had lost everything, and this was his final, furious message to the world. Even as more police surrounded him, they were helpless. The tank, virtually indestructible without military-grade weapons, rolled on unfazed. Officers couldn't get close enough to stop it, and they had no weapons capable of neutralizing a 57-ton tank. Thousands watched in real time as local news stations interrupted their programming to broadcast the madness. Live social media wasn't around yet, but word spread like wildfire across the country. San Diego had become the stage for what looked like a Hollywood war scene. By the time the tank reached Interstate 805, it had destroyed over 40 vehicles, crushed infrastructure, and knocked out power to over 5,000 homes. Water gushed into the streets from shattered hydrants. Entire lanes of the freeway were closed off, and traffic was backed up for miles. Nelson then tried something far more dangerous. He attempted to ram the concrete median and collapse an overpass. The tank bucked and bounced, but failed to break through. He turned back, roaring toward another path of destruction. Now surrounded, helicopters hovering overhead, the police considered two drastic options. Use steel barriers to lock the tank's treads, but that would take hours. To call in the military and use anti-tank weapons, which posed enormous risks in a civilian area. Neither was viable. Then fortune turned. As Nelson barreled down Route 163, he attempted to cross the central divider again. This time, the tank got stuck, wedged on top of the median, its tracks spinning helplessly. Seeing their chance, 4 officers rushed in. One of them, a former military reservist, knew how to open an M60's hatch. They climbed atop the immobilized tank, braving potential gunfire, though Nelson had no ammunition. Inside, Nelson didn't lock the hatch. The officer flung it open. The police screamed at him to stop and exit. But Nelson ignored them and jammed the throttle, trying to free the tank. One officer, seeing no other option, fired a single shot into the hatch. The bullet struck Nelson in the neck. The tank's engine groaned, then fell silent. It was over. Emergency responders pulled a barely conscious Nelson from the cockpit. He was rushed, ironically, to Sharp Memorial Hospital, the same facility he had once tried to sue. Despite doctors' best efforts, the wound was fatal. Hours later, Nelson was pronounced dead. The rampage was over, but the city was in shock. Over 150,000 damages had been caused. More than 40 vehicles were wrecked. City infrastructure was mangled. Local utility companies filed claims. Residents, though horrified, were also amazed. Miraculously, no civilians were hurt. The local residents were stunned and frightened by the incident. Many believed Nelson was nothing more than a madman. However, remarkably, even in his frenzy, he retained a shred of humanity. What Nelson destroyed were primarily public infrastructures: fire hydrants, power poles, and bus stops. The vehicles he crushed were parked unoccupied. No one was injured or killed during the rampage. The police chief defended the action, stating that using lethal force was justified. They had to end a dangerous chase before Nelson could kill someone with an armored tank, something the officers were not equipped to deal with. They also had no way of knowing whether Nelson was armed. If he had intentionally rammed cars with people inside, it would have posed a serious threat to public safety. The assistant police chief added, if he hadn't gotten stuck on that median, we would have been in real trouble. He was still actively trying to escape. If the tank hadn't been immobilized, no one could say how many lives might have been at risk. Investigations were launched. The armory's security protocols were harshly criticized. How could a man unarmed and alone hijack a 57-ton military weapon and bring an entire city to its knees? In the aftermath, all M60 tanks in storage had their batteries removed, rendering them inoperable. The military also revised access protocols to prevent such breaches from ever happening again. As for Shawn Nelson, people debated what led to that night. Some blamed mental illness, others blamed addiction, despair, or a failed system. Perhaps it was all of the above. Whatever the cause, his final act became one of the most bizarre, dangerous, and memorable rampages in US history. Thank you for watching. If you found this video compelling, don't forget to like, share, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We'll see you in the next story on the Hidden Secrets. Goodbye.